So what do you do when you realize that the life that you've built is no longer the life that you want anymore? And I think this is the trap that a lot of women over 40, we kind of get into and don't realize that we are in this trap that we set for ourselves. And I'll be the first to confess, I've gone through that myself. So if you're new here, my name is Janet, and welcome to the Second Act Collective. Today we are discussing about having built a life and waking up one day and realizing it is not the life that you want. And I know this can sound very entitled, right? Because a lot of times the life that you have might not be bad. It might be a very, on the outside, it looks good. It looks, like you have checked all the boxes of achievement. You went to college, you started a business, or you worked for a corporation and you climbed up the corporate ladder. You have kids, you have a family, like you have all the metrics. But inside, you realize that maybe you were kind of optimizing for the wrong scoreboard. So I totally understand that a lot of people could look at someone's life and think, oh, they have it going on. But a lot of times we don't actually know what's going on in people's lives, no matter what they look like, no matter how successful they look in the outside. A lot of people are not, a lot of women are actually not very happy, even though they might look successful. Because we might have built this life, based on a whole different metrics than the person you are now in your 40s or above, or 50s, 60s, whatever. So just because the life looks good on the outside does not mean, is that saying that says, you're climbing a ladder on the wrong wall. And I think that's what happens to a lot of us. We climb these ladders of success only to get to the top and be like, yeah, maybe that was not the right wall. Maybe the metrics I was using here for success are not really what matters to me. So this is usually what happens when you start to notice that, maybe the life that I did build, and it's not to say you're ungrateful, right? Doesn't mean you're ungrateful for what you have. It just means, I think, as a woman, we evolve. And one other thing that happens is that we realize that the life we have maybe might not match our values. And what maybe we valued when we're in our 20s and 30s is not what we what we now value in our late 40s. And that's okay to actually acknowledge that my values were different. And I will give an example for myself. When I was in my 20s, I was very, very ambitious and, wanted to climb the success ladder, build a business, have the family, be the the superwoman, whatever you want to call it, do it all, cook for my kids, run a business, take my kids to this and that. Like, that was who I was at that time. But I also have to acknowledge, after 3 kids, after having built a business and now starting pivoting into something new, I am no longer that woman. I'm not the same woman that I was in my 20s. And it's okay to actually admit that. And that my values are changed. Like, now the priorities I have are different from what I had back then. Like, for example, I am in the season that I'm in. My priority is really to spend a lot of time with my kids, especially my daughter who's going to college. And I've said this before, because this is something that is very important to me, that she's growing to be a woman and she's going to be out of her home soon and start her own life. And I want to be there as much as I can. So what does that look like in this season? What does my business look like? What does my work schedule look like? What does everything else look like in light of that being a value that is something I want to prioritize? So that's something that we run into as we realize the life that I've built is no longer what I want, because I have changed, I have evolved. And I think it's okay to admit that. And a lot of women, I think we're afraid to even admit that to ourselves, let alone to anybody else, because we do is, people might think we're ungrateful, that we should be happy with what we have. We should be content with what we've built and how lucky we are. And it is a blessing, right? It is a blessing, but to want something different does not mean you are ungrateful for what you've built. You're ungrateful for what you've been given by God. No, it just means you're in a place where the value system, the season, and what you've gone through has made you into this other person. I also think this is how God works, right? The evolving we're doing is because God is with us as we're doing this, as we're becoming whoever He wants us to become, and we're not to stay the same person we were in all these other seasons. We had to be different in every season that God is taking us through. Otherwise, there is no growth. And if you're staying the same, you're not growing at all. And if a baby was like 18 months and they still stayed at that stage at 18 months, we'd all be like, oh, something's wrong, right? Because we expect growth in anything. And therefore, there's also growth in us. And that comes with this realization that, no, maybe the thing that I built is not really what I want right now. And it's not working for what I want. And also, something that happens is that you realize that, you've been maintaining a life or a lifestyle that you no longer believe in. Right? Sometimes it's the hustling. You're hustling to build a business. You're hustling to climb the corporate ladder. You're hustling to get the promotion. You're doing all these things because at that time, in that season, you believe that. You were into it. You were, it was giving you energy. But you come to be in your 40s and you're like, yeah, I don't think I believe in this anymore. I don't think I believe in the hustle culture like I used to. That I can have ambition, but my ambition doesn't have to look like everybody else. I can have success, and my success does not have to look like everybody else. And I think these are the things that we realize as we start to look around our lives and the lives we've built, and we're like, yeah, I just, it's not who I am anymore. And then the other thing that also happens is that the achievement we have achieved, all the degrees, the business success, the career success, the promotions, you name it, the children you have bared and taken care of, the family, whatever achievements you have done in your life, because not all achievements are, based in career and business. I think being a mom is one of the greatest achievements that women do, because it's a very difficult job, responsibility. You love your children, but it is one of the greatest responsibilities, more than whatever money you're going to make. So whatever all that achievement you have made in your life, sometimes they stop feeling like progress, right? It's whatever you've been striving for to achieve can now start to feel empty. And that's when you look around your life and you're like, I have all these achievements and accolades and you name it, but there's an emptiness to it because the life you have built is no longer fitting with your values and who you are at that moment. You also, I think something that happens, and this happened to me, is that you live a life in autopilot. You're just going through the emotions a lot of times. You can kind of be mentally withdrawn from even your life because the way you've built it is a machine that you don't even have to think about. And, everything is on autopilot. And you don't, sometimes the comfort is what we struggle with because we're so comfortable in our autopilot lifestyle that we don't want to stop it. Even though we're not happy, even though we know there's more, we just continue and just do things like we're robots and life just moves on. And I think if you don't wake up from that, the damage later on is even greater. So realizing that your life is on autopilot is a good thing. Because again, it's taking you back to what have I built, and how do I want to continue? And do I really want to continue building the same life, or should I make a change right now and build something else, something that I value, something that is built around the core values that I have, right? For me, I'm a Christian. That is a big deal. Faith is a big deal in my life. And so I want a life that can accommodate that. Family is a big deal to me. I want a life that takes all that in consideration. And I no longer want to ignore things that are important to me just so that I can have this version of success that I was sold, the American dream that a lot of us are sold and we buy into. So what does that look like moving forward as we are rebuilding and building something new? And then the quiet knowing that we have, once this awareness comes in, once this awareness comes into play that you have built something and you're not happy with it anymore. Once that awareness comes in, it's like, what they say about seeing something and you cannot unsee it. That's kind of, I think, what happens with this. Once you have that awareness that the life you've built, it really needs to be reconsidered, looked at, or restructured, whatever. There's no, I don't think, going back. I mean, I guess some people look at it and just move on. But for a lot of us, people who are wanting to move into the next chapter in a more meaningful way, in a more, I don't know, more fulfilling way, and really becoming the woman that God wants us to be, I think you cannot go back. Once you come, it's like being awake to something, and you can never go back to what things were before. You cannot change that awareness. And then there's a responsibility, of course, that comes with knowing, because all the stuff we've talked about, you actually have to take action then and start to build the life that you think or you really believe God wants you to build. If you realize the life that you've built is no longer what you want or in alignment with where you are and who you've become. And all this has to do, again, with the fact that as women, we have to accept really everybody evolves. If you're living your life the way you did when you're in your 20s, in your 30s, and you're in your 50s, your 40s, whatever, you are not growing, and there's a problem right there. So part of evolving, part of becoming this person in our second act is the changes that are coming with all this, the realizations and being awake to certain things in our lives, and admitting that, yeah, I did build something. And for that season and for who I was then, it worked, but it no longer fits in my life now. It no longer fits with who I am. And there's no shame, there's no guilt, because I think a lot of times we don't do anything about it because we're afraid of the shame and the guilt that people are going to look at us and say, you made a mistake, you built this whole thing, and now you're throwing it away. And then we get stuck because we're afraid of what people say about us. And we never really grow into who we are supposed to be. So my desire for you as you listen to this is that if you're looking at your life and you feel like, I built this thing, this machine, and it's no longer something I want, it's okay to admit to yourself that it's not. It's okay to admit to close friends and family that it's not what you want and you want to build something else. And if nobody supports you, it's okay to just move forward and do it yourself. Right? We have this community. If you want to join, the link is in the description. But this is what I help women do. Like, how do you rebuild? How do you build a life that works for the season you're in now? And not as a luxury, but even in the smallest ways, the smallest step you can take towards that life. What does that look like? So if you found this video helpful, please subscribe and please comment and let me know if you are in that place where maybe you are realizing that the life you built is not what you want and you don't know how to go about it, or maybe you have made that transition and started to build something, please share so we can all learn from each other. I'll talk to you soon.